from Katie Gelfand, who serves as the Director of Religious Exploration in the congregation's First Unitarian Universalist Church of New Orleans. We light our chalice as a symbol of gratitude as we celebrate the abundance of our lives in the sanctuary. We harvest bushels of strength for one another and offer our crop with the hands of compassion and generosity. In the authentic and gentle manner of our connections, we cultivate a simple sweetness to brighten our spirits. May we be grateful for the ways we nourish and uplift each other, for it is the sharing of this hallowed time together that sustains us. Now I invite you to light your chalices at home and join me in the recitation of our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace and to seek truth in love and to help one another. Now we will have the prelude. Hold On, an arrangement by Calvin Taylor. Jim. Okay. Ted?
Good morning. This poem is by Richard Blanco, and it's called America the Beautiful Again. How I sang, oh beautiful, like a psalm at a church with my mother, her Cuban accent scaling up with every vowel, oh beautiful, yet in perfect pitch, delicate and tuned to the radiant beams of stained glass light. How she taught me to fix my eyes on the crucifix as we sang our thanks to the Savior for this country that saved us. Our voices, hymns as passionate as the organ piping towards the very heavens. How I sang for spacious skies, closer to those skies while I perched on my father's sun-beat shoulders, towering above our first 4th of July parade. How the timbre through our bodies mingled, breathing, singing as one with the brass notes of the marching band, playing the only song he ever learned in English. How I dared sing it at assembly with my teenage voice cracking for amber waves of grain that I had never seen, nor the purple mountain majesties, but I could imagine them in each verse rising from my gut. Every explanation of praise I belted out until my throat hurt. America. And again, America. How I began to read Nietzsche and doubt God, and yet still wish God to shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood. How I still want to sing, despite all the truth of our wars and our gunshots ringing louder than our school bells, our politicians smiling lies at the mic, the deadlock of our divided voices shouting over each other instead of singing together. How I want to sing again, beautiful or not, just to be in harmony, from sea to shining sea, with the only country I know enough to know how to sing for.
Okay, next we will have a song, Perfect Peace.
I think America's Beautiful is better.
Okay, let's do it. America the Beautiful. Thanks, Jim. Okay, we have a long tradition at Uufcc of sharing our joys, sorrows, and life milestones, and they are entered in what we call the Book of Life. And here it comes. Thanks, Helen. Okay, for those of you that are online, you do have the option of emailing us your joys and sorrows to the email address bookoflife@uufcc.org, and messages should be sent no later than Saturday to be submitted for the service. So let me go ahead and read what's been entered today. Okay, so now with open hearts, we share what has been written in the book today. Today is the 6th. And here's an entry from Lori. It says, yesterday was Helen's birthday. Please help me in celebrating and wishing her a happy birthday. Thank you. Another happy birthday, Helen. Please give positive thoughts for my siblings. Sister Carolyn has been moved to a memory care, ALF. Brother Bob is confined to a wheelchair. This is from John Lee. And last, tomorrow, Deb and I celebrate our 50th anniversary. That's a lot of years for two folks that shouldn't have ever met except for others. Kay Azar. 50 years. Okay, and that's all. Okay, let's take a moment to acknowledge all that has been shared, as well as the joys and concerns that remain unspoken and yet are on our minds and in our hearts. In this moment of quiet, may our hearts open to hope and healing. May our minds open to peace and possibilities. We'll have a short moment of silence. Okay. May we hold all these and one another in love and tenderness, so that this congregation may be a source of strength and comfort, courage and hope in the days and weeks ahead. You'll now have the meditative music. Perfect Peace. Wow, that was beautiful. I think I'm in a dreamlike state right now. And the world is a perfect place. Okay. Spirit of widening the circle of concern, we will have today's sermon, which will feature members of the Immigration Justice Committee.
Share with you some of the immigration experience and why we work for justice for immigrants. The poem Ted read this morning was written by Richard Blanco. You may have heard him before. He was the presidential inaugural poet for Barack Obama. I heard him speak at a Unitarian Universalist General Assembly a few years ago. And the poem Ted read, America the Beautiful Again, is from one of his books, How to Love a Country. The book has this dedication that beautifully expresses our immigration justice work. And those of you who speak Spanish, please forgive my poor Spanish. Dime con quién andas, y te diré quién eres. Tell me with whom you walk, and I will tell you who you are. These poems are for all those whose trailblazing footsteps I followed here, and for all those I now walk alongside with compassion, hope, and the audacity to believe that someday all of us will walk together. In 2018, there were 44.8 million immigrants living in the United States. This is 13.7% of the nation's population. In 1960, there were 9.7 million immigrants living here, the total population at the time. The ethnic makeup of immigrants has changed, but the motivation for immigrants to seek a better life has not. And the struggles, once they arrive, have not changed. Why do people come to the U.S.? There are lots of surveys and studies and theories, and you probably are familiar with many of them. Perhaps you or your family came here recently enough that the reason is still remembered in your family story. Over the past few years, the Immigration Justice Committee has collected stories from immigrants in our community. These are a few of their stories. The youngest person we spoke with came from the Ukraine in 2015. He's in high school now, so he was only 8 years old when he came to the U.S. with his parents. He thought life in the Ukraine was good at the time, but says that people here are nice and that it's clean. He remembers the great number of people who were homeless in the Ukraine. He remembers the public drunkenness and frequent vandalism. His family came here so he could have a better life. The oldest person we spoke to was our own Marcel Cates. Marcel was born in Indonesia in 1941. His Jewish parents left the Netherlands for safety and for business opportunities. When Marcel was 1, the Japanese invaded Indonesia, and he and his parents were incarcerated in a concentration camp. He was there until he was 4. He has a few memories from this time and knows the hardship on his parents from their memories. After the war, Marcel and his parents went back to Europe for a few years, then came to the U.S. in 1948. His family came here so he could have a better life. 2 of the people we spoke with have brown skin and are not native English speakers, and spoke of prejudice in ways that are maybe not surprising. One came to the U.S. when he was a teen and worked construction after school to help support his family. He joined the military in 1969 and spent much of his adult life serving the United States in dangerous war zones, in Vietnam when he was young, and in Lebanon in the 1980s. He has spent much of his life helping make the U.S. a better place for others, safer. The other person isn't actually an immigrant. In fact, her parents aren't immigrants either. They were both born in Texas, but they are of Mexican heritage and were migrant workers when she was born. She didn't learn English until she went to school at age 7. She also worked to help her family. She is the oldest of 8 and spent her time babysitting her siblings while her parents worked in the fields. She told us stories of being humiliated by others who looked down on her because of her accent, her skin color, and her heritage. She also told us about people who helped her. Her best 7-year-old friend who helped her learn English, and friends who showed her how to be brave. She told us about the teacher who believed in her abilities and the restaurant owner who gave her a chance at a job. She spent much of her career working for the United Auto Workers International Union, helping make the workplace a better place for others. 2 people from Poland shared the pain of being apart from family and from all that is familiar to a place where they don't speak the language, understand the culture, can't find the ingredients to cook familiar food, the humiliation of losing their previous lives, working long hours and working physically difficult jobs, not making enough money, living in crowded apartments, feeling lonely and homesick and unwelcome. And yet they all came. And they're all still here.
Good morning. My name is Betty Barriga. I am an immigrant. Most important, I am chair of the Immigration Justice Committee of the Uufcc. When I moved to Florida in 2016 with my mother, I was not looking to be a chair of anything. But the universe had other plans. In 2016, Donald Trump was running for president on an anti-immigration platform. In his speeches, he proposed the deportation of illegal immigrants, the construction of a wall on the Mexican and U.S. border. He referred to Mexicans as criminals, drug cartels, and rapists. He advocated for the ban of foreign Muslims entering the United States. He frightened me. What frightened me even more were the numbers of people rising to support and embrace his ideas to make America great again. Yes, you can make America great by getting rid of the other people that look like me, because we are to be fair. How could I not take it personally, I ask you? You see, most of us immigrants, we do not want to leave home. Everything we have ever known, our families, our friends, our countries, our culture, to start anew somewhere foreign. But life happens. You have corrupt governments, gang violence, dire poverty that pushes people to leave their homes, to seek a better place for themselves and their families. Can you blame them? Wouldn't you do the same? Yes, you say, but they should do it the right way. What is the right way, I ask you? Take the Haitians that were gathered in Del Rio, Texas, in September 2021. They were seeking asylum. Under U.S. law, people who are physically present in the United States may request asylum and should be given a chance to make their case that they have credible fear of persecution or fear for their lives if they return to their country of origin. We all know that Haiti is a poor country inflicted with gang violence, political corruption, and unrest. a country devastated by 2 major earthquakes that destroyed thousands of homes and businesses. Yet, the U.S. government moved to expel these Haitians camped around a bridge in Del Rio, Texas. These asylum seekers were flown back to Haiti without giving them the opportunity to make their case for asylum. Seeking asylum is a lawful act in the United States, but most important, is a human right that should not be denied to anyone. Those that are lucky enough to be processed for asylum, they have to wait 150 days to start their work permit application. Once the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services receives the application, they have 30 days to process a work permit. So, the total time is 180 days. This is a long time for someone who enters a country with just their clothes on their backs. If the asylum seeker is caught working without a permission, he will be prosecuted and sent to prison and deported. They're not here to be a burden. They want to work. They want to feed their families. They want to feed themselves. They want to put a head over their heads, so they work. And in the 2020 documentary, Immigration Nation, we saw a Bay County Commissioner, Tommy Ham. He also owned Winterfell Construction Company, being confronted by community activists for not paying immigrant workers, some for months. These immigrant workers are easy targets for exploitation since they cannot go to the authorities and file a complaint. Look around you. The lawn service people, the roofers, the construction workers, they are people of color, non-English speakers. Don't you wonder if they're being paid a fair and decent salary at your favorite restaurant? How about the man doing the roof, your roof, with no breaks under the hot sun? It's convenient to look away. It is convenient for our blissfulness. It is convenient for our bank accounts. We as Unitarians cannot afford to look away, for we believe in the worth and dignity of each human being. So come, join us, the Immigration Justice Committee of the Uufcc. We are recruiting tutors to help English as a second language students at our local school. We are collecting bikes gently used for farm workers in Immokalee, thus maintaining a closer relationship with the Coalition of Immokalee Workers. We are seeking letters for the editor for our local newspaper to counteract the hateful messages about immigrants and to promote a fair and rational plan that will benefit both immigrants and our nation. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Tricia. Prior to the pandemic, my wife and I spent a week in Brownsville, Texas, with a group called Witness at the Border. We heard many of the stories of families and adults living in a large encampment of asylum seekers in Matamoros, Mexico, which was across the border from Brownsville. Many of the faces and the stories have had a real impact on me. Several of our group witnessed Maria apply for asylum in the tent court. 18-year-old Maria had helped her older brother run a store that her parents had left to them in their village in Guatemala. The gangs continued to increase the cost of protection money for them to operate. And they continued to up it until the brother could not pay, and the brother was shot and killed in front of Maria. At that point, her life was also threatened. The extended family pooled what money they had, and that very night, Maria fled to the United States. It was a strenuous journey by foot and bus. She waited 7 months in the encampment in Matamoros to be heard in the immigration court. Most of the asylum seekers do not have legal representation when they go to the immigration court. She told the George Shore story and told of her fear that if she returned to her village, that she would face certain death. She was denied asylum and returned to the camp, even though the legal definition is credible fear. Sounds credible to me. Please consider which of these options you would select if you were in Maria's place. Return to her village where there's a high possibility of death, number one. Number two, remain in the camp in Matamoros and attempt crossing the Rio Grande River with others. The camp was not a safe place. Cartels entered the camp at night to extort, kidnap, rape, and murder. When we would go over to the camp to help with meals or at the store, we had to be back. The group decided that we should be back by 3 o'clock, and there was a head count every day to make sure we all had returned. The third choice she had, or option, was to ask her aunt and uncle who lived in the United States to loan her money to hire a coyote to bring her into the United States. In options 2 and 3, she would have to live as an undocumented person. Her employment would be under the table with all the risks of exploitation that Betty touched on, and she would not have medical insurance or a driver's license. Maria's experience of fleeing her home for safety issues in the camp, her experience of safety issues in the camp, and the negative experience in the immigration court are typical for those seeking asylum at the southern border. The last statistics I have seen indicated that less than 1% of asylum seekers who appear in the court without legal representation are denied. Thank you.
But she prepared a statement that I will now read for her. Why I am passionate about working with the Immigration Justice Committee. I am proud to say that I was directly involved in the establishment of the Fellowship's Immigration Justice Committee several years ago and have continued to be an active participant ever since. The work before us is daunting. The most recent attacks on immigrants, accusing them of being criminals, of bringing narcotics across the border, taking jobs away from Americans, and using welfare time and money, is all part of the systemic attack on Black and brown people that has mushroomed in the last few years. It is a plan to divide people who truly are natural allies and to divert their attention away from a common enemy. The common enemy is hate, prejudice, and greed, and those that perpetuate this message. And we see its ugly head growing larger every day. The truth is that undocumented Americans pay millions of dollars each year in income taxes, filing without Social Security numbers, but submitted required payments. Further, studies show that immigrants are unlikely to use medical facilities for fear of being exposed and deported. and statisticians agree that immigrants do not take jobs away from American workers. In addition, findings indicate that undocumented immigrants rarely commit crimes because they are too afraid of being identified and deported. It is not fair. The mistreatment and prejudice against folks who flee their homelands in search of better lives, as my grandparents did and as your families probably did too, is not fair. It is wrong and must be stopped. We in the Immigration Justice Committee work to right these wrongs. We work with other like-minded groups in our county, such as the Charlotte School District, to teach English to children and their parents. We lead letter-writing campaigns to our legislators to stop immigration detention, particularly in for-profit institutions. We hold community meetings among business people to convince them to protect their immigrant workers, and many of whom are undocumented. We are constantly busy because it is important, and this work must be done. It might sound grandiose, but I think we will win. There are too many good people here at the Uufcc, here in Port Charlotte, here in Florida, and yes, here in the USA, who all agree hate has no place here and never will.
Okay, many thanks to the Immigration Justice Committee. I appreciate that presentation. In our tradition, congregations exist because of the generous support of members and friends. It is our privilege and our responsibility to ensure the health and future of our communities. To this end, your offerings to support the ministry of this congregation, whether by pledge or donation, may be offered online. There are several ways to give. You can mail a check to the office, drop them in our mailbox, or call the office to make other arrangements. We are also equipped to accept donations through Venmo app. Payments through this app should be made to Uufcc offering. If you would like your donation to apply to anything other than the operating fund, like our second helping, for example, please indicate your intentions on the check memo line. Please remember that our second helping supports the Harry Chapin Food Bank and two local food pantries, CHAPS and Meals on Wheels. Your generosity is always appreciated. And now it's time for announcements. Lots going on here at Uufcc. And if you want a full list and detailed report, please check your Uufcc updates, which arrives by email. The updates provide a very important means of staying connected during these challenging times. So I'm going to highlight a few things. Lori Douglas, under the heading of Conversations on the Ministry, offers this. What's the future of professional ministry at Uufcc? We know there are lots of questions and opinions, so let's talk about it. In these one-hour sessions, Rev. Kathy will share basic information about the professional ministry, and board members will give an update on what they have learned from the UUA's regional staff regarding our options moving forward. We will be sure to have plenty of time for your questions and conversations. Please plan to attend these sessions. There is a session on Tuesday, February 15th at 10. It's a Zoom link. Thursday, February 17th at 7, another Zoom link. On Saturday, February 19th at 2 o'clock, the meeting is going to be at this fellowship, and again on Sunday, February 20th at 11:45 a.m. The nominating committee is seeking delegates for the General Assembly, which will be both virtual and in person in Portland, Oregon, June 22nd through the 26th, If you would like to participate in GA, either in person or virtually, let members of the nominating committee know. And that includes Lynn Ritchie, John Lee, Stephanie Garrett, Dennis Shaw, and Jackie Williamson. There's free COVID testing at Uufcc between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Saturday. So the fellowship is renting space to a company that does COVID testing for a month, and there's a possibility that they could continue after the initial period. There is an auction coming up. The auction will be held on February 19th. Fred Palmerter is offering Zoom sessions every Thursday at 4 p.m. on the universal Zoom link to help people with the auction website. So bear that in mind, and that is coming up. News from the Caring Committee. We have multiple caring opportunities that have come to our attention. We could use additional help in the following ways. Help with providing meals for families with various temporary health and other issues. Rides are needed to medical appointments. If you're interested in helping out with the newsletter, please think about working with a couple of people to map out a plan for the continuation of the newsletter after Fred retires as editor in March. And lastly, there is a membership team meeting on Monday. Join the Uufcc membership team on Monday, February 7th at 10:30. And let's see here. Membership coordinator is Stephanie Garrett. And we are having a yard sale on April 1st and 2nd. It's time to start saving your stuff to donate to the Uufcc yard sale. I wish it was today. I have a lot of stuff to give away. Okay, so I have, there's one more announcement. Let's see. We've already celebrated. Oh, Sandy's birthday is today. Sandy, are you here? Maybe you're out there on Zoom. Sandy Telelander's birthday. It's a January birthday, but we still want to remember her. So happy birthday, Sandy. Okay.
Can I add one?
Yes.
It's not in the Book of Life, but earlier this week, our Peg Stunkard observed her 101st birthday.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to read to you a piece by Martine Espada, and here it is. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ask, have you ever seen floaters this clean? I'm not trying to be an ass, but I have never seen floaters like this. Could this be another edited photo? We've all seen the Dems and liberal parties do some pretty sick things. Quote from an anonymous post in the, quote, IM 10-15, close quote, Border Patrol Facebook group. Like a beer thrown into the river by a boy too drunk to cry, like the shard of a styrofoam cup drained of coffee brown as the river, like the plank of a fishing boat broken in half by the river, the dead float. And the dead have a name, floaters, as the men of the Border Patrol keeping watch all night by the river, heart pumping coffee as they say the word floater. Soft as a bubble, hard as a shoe as it nudges the body, to see if it breathes, to see if it moans, to see if it sits up and speaks. And the dead have names, a feast day, parade of names, names that dress all in red, names that swirl skirts, names that blow whistles, names that shake rattles, names that sing in praise of saints. Say Oscar, Alberto, Martinez, Ramirez. Say Angie, Folaria, Mendez, Avalos. See how they rise off the tongue, the call of birds to birds, somewhere in the trees above our heads, trilling in the dark heart of leaves. Say what we know of them now, they are dead. Oscar slapped dough for pizza in oven-blistered fingers. Daughter, Valeria, sang, banging a toy guitar. He slipped free of the apron he wore in the blast of the oven, sold his motorcycle. He would kick till it sputtered to life, counting up pesos for the trip across the river, and the last of his 25 years, and the last of her 23 months. There is another name that beats its wings in the hearts of trees. Tania, Vanessa, Avalos, Oscar's wife, and Valeria's mother, the witness stumbling along the river. Now their names rise off her tongue, say Oscar y Valeria. He swam from Matamoros across Brownsville. The girl slung around his neck stood her in the weeds on the Texas side of the river, swore to return with her mother in hand, turning his back as fathers do, who say later, I turned around and she was gone. In the time it takes for a bird to hop from branch to branch, Valeria jumped in the river after her father. Maybe he called out her name as he swept her up from the river. Maybe the river drowned out his voice as the water swept them away. Tania called out the names of saints, but the saints dozed in the stupor of birds in the dark, their cages covered with blankets. The men on patrol would never hear their pleas for asylum, watching for floaters. Cars pumping coffee all night on the Texas side of the river. No one, they say, have ever seen floaters so clean. Oscar's black shirt yanked up to the armpits. Valeria's arms slung around her father's neck, even as the light left her eyes. Both face down in the weeds back on the Mexican side of the river. Another edited photo. See how her head disappears in his shirt, the waterlogged diaper bunched in her pants, the blue of the blue cans. The radio warned us about the crisis actors. We see at one school shooting after another, the man called Oscar will breathe, sit up, speak, tug the black shirt over his head, shower off the mud, and shake hands with the photographer. Yet the floaters did not float down the Rio Grande like Olympians, showing off the backstroke. Neither did their souls float up to Dallas, land of rumored jobs and a president shot in the head as he waved from his motorcade. No bubbles arose from the breath in the mud, light as the iridescent circles of soap that would fascinate a 2-year-old. And the dead still have names, names that sing in praise of the saints, names that flower in blossoms of white, a cortege of names dressed all in black, trailing the coffins to the cemetery. Carve their names in headlines and gravestones they would never know in the kitchens of this cacophonous world. Enter their names in the book of names, say Oscar, Alberto, Martinez, Ramirez, Angie, Valeria, Martinez, Avalos. Bury them in a corner of the cemetery named for the sainted Archbishop of the Poor, shot in the heart saying Mass, bullets bought by the taxes I paid when I worked as a bouncer and fractured my hands 40 years ago, and bumper stickers read, El Salvador is Spanish for Vietnam. When the last bubble of breath escapes the body, may the men who speak of floaters, who have never seen floaters this clean, float through the clouds to the heavens where they paddle air as they wait for the saints who flips through the keys on his ring like a drowsy janitor until he fingers the key that turns the lock and shuts the gate on their babble-tongued faces. They plunge back to earth, a shower of hailstones pelting the river, the Mexican side of the river. Okay, thank you. So we're going to extinguish the chalice. If someone could help me with that. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of community. May those ideals shine in our lives and warm our hearts until we are together again. And now we will have Go Now in Peace. Okay, everyone, you can start singing. Everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, may the spirit of love surround you. Everywhere, everywhere you may go. And in closing, grateful for this time together, may gather up the gifts we have received from one another and carry them into our lives in the world. Inspired by the flame that we carry in our heart, may we use the gifts received in ways large and small, so that we may, each of us, be a blessing to the world. Go now in peace. Thank you. Very emotional service. Yeah. Very good. To humanize the experience of others, to make a connection.